Welcome, welcome, Raphael. Raphael's the founder. We're gonna talk. We're gonna chat today about his crazy story and what's up now. Yeah, just as an intro here. Obviously, it's kind of an interview, but mostly a conversation. We're gonna chat a bit, and there are many things that I think people can learn from your sort of past experience and the things that you do now, which I think it's very cool. We're going to learn about this in a bit, but yeah, let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your story. It's a crazy one, very interesting one, but tell us about it.
I'm not sure how crazy it is compared to yours, but thanks for having me on the show. Bro, super appreciated. I'm happy to share my story with your audience, and hopefully it's gonna inspire a few. And
Sure will.
anybody's listening and is looking to start their journey in business, it might be a sign because it started from very far and low and super young as well. Um, so I'm Raf, co-founder of Pana Ventures. We help tech scale up grow with grants. What is a grant? Is basically what we call free money from the government, right? But typically it's an investment that is non-refundable, made by the government to help you grow your business, fund your R&D, different activities. There's a lot of money right now for tech companies, and we really specialize in helping those founders grow their products and build their products and grow their team and see how they can leverage grants instead of sometimes typical VC, and let's raise more and more capital and dilute ourselves. I've discovered that there's sometimes a better way, and grant is one of them.
Sounds awesome. So let's go back before we go back to Pana Ventures and the things that you're doing now, which is super cool. Let's go back in time to the early days of Raphael and how you got started, how you got sort of started on in entrepreneurship and the things that sort of moved you back then. What was your first experience, your first entrepreneur story?
It's funny, man. I don't know what is exactly like the beginning. I think it was kind of like gradual into getting exposed to entrepreneurship more through like reading books and podcasts and different documentaries, and obviously listening to Tony Robbins and and just kind of like, I think it really like lighted me up at the time and made me realize that, hey, I think I might go in a different path than what my parents wanted me to do at that time.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of how the idea of becoming an entrepreneur started to just gravitate around me. But what really triggered it, it was 2015 actually. I got sick and I got a bacteria in my legs, and that lasted for 2 years. I was super sick, could barely walk for 2 years. Had to take a bunch of meds just to be able to
Wow.
get out of the bed, go through normal things. So obviously I had to like quit school, quit work, quit everything, the social things, and that went on from like 17 to almost I was 19, almost 20. And not being super curious in nature, I think it's not necessarily that I missed school, because I don't think I really fit in on a bench listening to a teacher, and there's nothing wrong about it. It's just for me personally, I like when things go fast, and but I think I missed learning a lot, and that was kind of like my only point of reference on how to learn was school, right? It's like, where do you learn? It's like school. Going to the library and read a book is kind of like, it's considered boring and not cool at that time, right? So it's like, okay, so I want to learn more, can't go to school. So that's kind of started to look online for courses and book. And I remember taking my crutches and going to a local library that was just next door, and got my first business book. I think it was called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Right.
Kind of like a good entry, a business book. The guy told me, hey, take this one, you're gonna like it. I don't think I understood everything in that book, to be
You were
quite
17
honest.
at the time, or 18?
I was 17, yeah, 17. I don't think I quite understand everything, but a lot of what I read kind of like resonated and made sense. Like, hey, you want more in your life, you need to be doing more. You need to give first before you receive. You need to do certain things to attract certain things. And I was kind of like, huh, interesting, kind of like very different from what I learned to school, where it's like, do the bare minimum to have 60 to pass and make sure that you pass so you can get to the next level, and never really about doing 120%, right? So,
and also the memory kind of, because it's mostly, try to memorize everything and then write it in a paper. And, it's not necessarily about how to find solutions to things. It's mostly like, okay, this is what it is, and now I'm going to put it on a paper.
And super interesting point, because what I've observed at that time is that if you're not emotionally involved in the learning process, you're most likely to forget everything. But I was so kind of like moved by those learnings, and kind of I started really questioning myself about, okay, where am I heading in this dark time of my life, obviously. And I think because I was so emotional when I read that book, because of everything that was going on with my life, I think it kind of like stuck more, maybe
impacted more.
It impacted more, right? So I kind of like a blessing in disguise, right? And that got me into watching a documentary called "I Am Not Your Guru" by Tony Robbins. I don't know if you saw that on Netflix.
I saw that one. Yeah.
In the early days, I'm not sure if the documentary is still live, but just to give it a bit of context, it starts and Tony's talking to this young man that is depressed, not knowing really where he's going with his life. And I could relate so much to that guy, because I was so depressed at that time, couldn't do anything, right? Super sick, in pain all day. And he said one sentence that really stuck to me, and it's when you're gonna realize that life doesn't happen to you but for you, it's like everything changes. And I was like, what if I'm going through all of this right now because there's like a bigger purpose and it's a test, right? Life is testing me, and it can either sit there on my bed every day and do nothing with my life and just hope that things are gonna get back to normal, or I can use this opportunity to do something great with my life. And I say, all right, let's do this, and I'll start digging a bit more into starting a business. So then I got started working on my security license and insurance license.
Okay.
For me, entrepreneurship was like this, super like cool things about money and cars. So I was like, oh, insurance, finance, it's cool, right? So I was like, I'll do that. See if I can become a broker or somehow like start a company. So did my license and everything. I started doing cold calls, quickly realized that, hey, it's like you need a network, or I was just like super young, right? I was like probably 18 at that stage, and it just didn't work out. But I still really enjoyed my experience, right? And I learned a ton from just all the no's and the cold calling. And
but it's an interesting contrast, because you were like coming from this place where you were like, oh yeah, this entrepreneurship thing, right, which is about money, about cars, and you mentioned those two things, which is kind of, I think it's a compelling thing for a lot of young people that go like, oh, I want to have this. But then of course you completely dismiss all the behind the scenes of that, which are very, very different from the successful case. We only see the successful cases, basically.
Nobody tells you about the dark side of entrepreneurship.
Nobody goes like, oh yeah, I was like in this place for like 3 years and not making enough money to do that, and so you know the drill. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. And so I did that for about a year, then realized, okay, I don't think I like this. Not because it was difficult, just because I think I'm a smart guy, and I could realize at the time that I think there's more to learn, and there's more skills that I need to build for myself and learn in order to be doing good in this industry, like networking and sales. And I was just like, I'm starting from really like the beginning, and I think kind of like the barrier to entry was kind of high. And maybe it was a mistake, maybe a misconception, but that's how I felt at the time. And yeah, so did that. Then I said, okay, I look back at a program in school, because I was like, okay, there might be like a business program that I can go learn, because I don't know nothing and I failed, so maybe I can go and learn, right? And that kind of like gave me a reason to go back to school, because now I had a purpose to learn, right? And it wasn't just I'll go and try to absorb all the information from different topics and see where it leads me. It was like, I want to learn sales, I want to learn marketing, I want to learn how to set up a company. So I started looking for entrepreneurship program, and there was one that just opened in at Champlain College in St. Lambert, and it was called Entrepreneurship and Small Business Management.
Yeah.
I think the program still exists to this day, and we're basically the second cohort, so it was kind of like a test.
A new thing,
so they were kind of like super open to try different courses and stuff. So it was, I thought, okay, why not? Let's go. I met my business partner there, Alex, and I was still sick. 3 times a day when I was at school, I had to go in the bathroom to literally. I had I think it's called a PICC line in French, but it's basically a tube that pumps meds to your heart.
Wow.
And I had that on me in school, and 3 times a day I had to go to the bathroom, inject me with the antibiotics, and going back to my class. And
you really want to do that if you're willing to go through that kind of.
for sure, I think I was so over it, and when they say I kind of saw the light, and I was just like, look, if I stay home, I'm just gonna literally die there.
Right.
And I was like, there's no way it's happening to me. So I was like, I'll do anything to just go back and immerse myself in a different environment and bring more positivity to my life. And I met my business partner there, Alex, and I remember during our first year, it was summer. I was on my balcony at my parents', and he kind of like showed up uninvited, and came to see me and talk, and he said, hey Raph, you still want to like start your own business? I was like, sure. And he said, I think I have an idea. And at the time, Alex was working with a company that was distributing all the garbage and recycling bins here in Quebec. And he said, look, I'm doing all those runs and repairing the bins and distributing the bins, and people are just always asking me if there's a product to clean the bins and make it just smell good in general. And it was at a time where great timing again, because Quebec was announcing that they would introduce the third bin, the compost bins.
Right.
And if you didn't like the garbage bin, bro, the compost bin, that was a lot of trouble. Smelled bad, the worms, the animals and everything. So I quickly turned him down because I was like, dude, this is the less sexy idea I've ever heard. It's like, I'm not doing that. I was like, dude, I'm sick. You want me to go play in garbage? It makes no sense. But it's like, no, it's good. And I sat down on my bed that night, and I was like, dude, it's like, you've been literally like praying for 2 years to have an opportunity like that to kind of like give you purpose again. And here you are turning it down just because of beliefs and limiting belief that you have. And misconceptions. So I called him the next day and I said, hey, you know what? He came back and I said, all right, let's do this. So we started working on that at night at his dad's office, in the morning before school, created just a name, a brand, a logo. And we ended up with the name Back à Back, which is kind of like back to back or bin to bin. And because the idea was, hey, we're going to go clean the bins back to back, one after the other, and back is a bin in French.
Right.
So it's kind of like a nice wordplay. People are going to remember it, and we were like so excited about the name of the brand, and we thought that, hey, that was it. That's all we need, right? A name, and people are going to buy our stuff.
Right.
So we decided to try out the idea, and I didn't know at the time, but that was a great lean startup demonstration that we were doing. We got pressure machine, water boots, and we started knocking at our neighbors' door to door, asking them if they want us to clean their bins.
No initial investment to start that one. I mean, just a little bit for I guess
probably like $500 at Canadian Tire to get the equipment, like the soap and everything. No, it's not bad. I mean, we were 18 at the time. We didn't have like much money, right? I probably had like $200 in my bank account because I hadn't worked for almost 2 years, staying at my parents', right? Alex had, I think, probably like $5,000 or like $10,000 aside from his job, and so we got to do there and count our money at the end of the day. We're like, oh shit, like we're making literally like $100 an hour. I was like, I'm never gonna go back to a regular student job working at So I was like, that's great. You know what? I'd rather knock on doors and fight my anxiety of selling something, but make a lot of money, right? So I was hooked instantly. and Alex too. So we decided to go to a startup weekend, which is usually a 3-day competition where you kind of like pitch your idea, and there's judges at the end, and there's prizes, right? Money, services. And we met our third partner there as an engineer, and we work on the project that we would build a truck to clean those bins instead of us going door to door. It would be kind of like a mobile unit, you know, with a gripper, taking your bin, cleaning it, and kind of like putting back, recycling, reusing the whole water. It was like a nice eco-friendly project. And we won one of the prizes there, kind of as I think as the highlight of the weekend, something like that. Cool. So that kind of like gave us the confidence of, okay, I think like we're onto something. And we decided to incorporate the business right after that, say, hey, we'll do that. Me and Alex were gonna run the business, and our third partner, Jan, at the time was, we told him, hey, you're gonna start working on the technology. You're an engineer, build the truck, you know, the concept and everything. Then he came back to us saying that, hey, it's gonna cost, you know, probably like 50 grand or 100 grand to have like a first prototype. So I look at my $200 in my bank account and I was like, okay, no way this is happening. We need to fund that. And kind of like a great lesson there, because we were so young and had no credit history, nobody would kind of like lend us money. So that kind of like put the barriers, and we had to be innovative and find a way to fund that. So we called Alex's company where he was working for, say, hey, do you guys need help to deliver more bins? And said, sure, if you can get a pickup truck and a trailer in 2 weeks, we'll give you your first contract. So we took all these savings, the 5K or 10K, we bought an old pickup truck. We rented a trailer for the week. We called them back and we said we asked them where we were going, and our first contract was in Gaspésie, 14 hours from where we were living.
Far. If you know Quebec, it's far.
That's right. So yeah, it was quite a trip, and so we started driving, and like 40 minutes after driving, Alex was like looking at the fuel. He was like, dude, we're never gonna make it. It's like we're so heavy. It's like burning so much fuel.
Wow. And so, what time of the year was that?
It was May.
May. Okay.
It was May, so it was good. And but we had taken all our money to buy the truck, right? So we basically had like $500 left and like a credit card.
Wow.
So now we're like, hey, we need to go there. We need to pay for our hotel or like our motel, our food, the fuel and everything. And we're like, dude, we're burning way too much gas. We're never going to be able to come back with the money that we have. So we're like, so we said, okay, let's just slow down. So we drove all the way to Gaspésie at like 90 or like 80 on the highway. People literally like, anyway, so it took us 14 hours to get there. We were at 3 a.m. in the morning. We lost the trailer on the highway, like the whole thing. And we finally got to our motel, and we had this conversation, I remember, and we said, look, if we want a second contract, we need to be better than their guys and kind of like do it faster or better. Better was really hard because you're just taking a bin and you're giving it to a house, right? So it's like there's nothing, but faster, that was kind of how we could do it. So we set our goal to do it in 10 days instead of 3 weeks. Working all day, all night, the weekends. So we did 10 days straight, and we managed to close the contract. And they had given us 21 days. So I literally walked the whole Gaspésie, bro. It's like, while Alex was in the truck carrying all the bins, I was behind running, taking the bins, giving it to each. The process is like really old school. There's no automation, no technology. You have the bin, you give it door to door.
Basically an MVP right there. Like,
that's right.
If you wanted to scale that.
That's right. So came back, phone rang. It was a company that hired us. They were like, how did you guys do it? You're just like, yo, we worked our butt off, like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. They're like, all right, we have a second contract for you, this time much closer, like an hour and a half.
Thank goodness. I was going to ask you about that.
They paid us, man, and I always remember for 10 days, we got a check for $15,000. And I was like, I was 18 at the time. I had $200 in my bank account. Our credit cards were loaded because we had to pay for everything. That was like the biggest relief. And we're just like, okay, we'll buy a second truck, a second trailer, we'll build one ourselves, we'll go hire 1 or 2 guys. And that was just the beginning of the company.
At that time, at that moment, when you got that first check, it probably the most, money that you've seen in a while. Did you think to yourself, that's it, I made it? We made it. It's
Not really. I was definitely like really excited. But I've always had those big ideas and that vision that I was like, we're still like very far from what we need. And just because Jan set the standard of like, hey, we need like 50 grand for the truck, the technology, I was like, until we get there and start generating money on with contracts, because like we were still contractors, right? So it's like, it was still kind of like, well, tomorrow they could like tell us like, hey guys, you don't have a contract anymore. So it was just like, until we get to that point where we're independent with our own technology and we our own source of revenue, and our own clients, I was still kind of like, okay, we need to like really double down on everything. And fast forward a year and a half later, I think we're making about probably like 60,000-80,000 a month. We had, I think, 30 people on the payroll at the time, full time, all young guys, girls, working outside. We probably delivered close to 80% of all the compost bins in Quebec.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we ended our last contract, and I think we were like close to like 400,000 bins delivered, something like that. Wow. I remember like sitting with Alex and be like, yo, it's crazy that it's just like these young, people that just fucking get into it and did everything themselves. And we had like a 7-8 truck. We had a warehouse. We were dealing with cities as well. We had built the technology as well. We had our first prototype, and then COVID hit, man. And then COVID hit, started running low on cash flow. The company that was contracting us was insisting that we'd continue working, but we were at a stage where even we couldn't even put gas in our truck because all our credit was loaded, right? And we had to pay payroll and everything. So, and good thing that me and Alex sat down and said, look, we have about 3 months of cash flow. Right now, we were burning probably like, I think, 16,000 a month just in fixed costs by doing nothing. If we just go on a contract, it was about like 40K a month just to have everybody there. So I was like, hey, listen, dude, it's like, we have loans right now. We had a loan. We had like different things, the trucks and, all the payments. So I was like, we have like 3 months left until we will have to pay that personally. And it's going to be like kind of like a shit show, right? And I'm like, I'm 20. I don't think I want to have like all that burden on me.
Also, we didn't know back then how long this thing was going to last.
That's the thing. I didn't believe it. I said 2 weeks max.
Yeah, well, that's what everyone thought at the beginning. I remember thinking the same. People would say, yeah, it's gonna maybe a few weeks, but it's gonna go around.
So I said 2 week max. We waited 2 weeks, then reopen. Cities is very politic, so like they don't want to lose their next election, so they were just like, we're going to do everything being super risk averse. So good thing that we decided to shut down the company, because they paused all the contract for 9 months.
Wow.
I would have been like indebted like crazy, right? So we almost broke even by closing the company. A bit of like personal debt that was attached to that. Nothing too crazy, right?
Kind of shut it down just in time.
Yeah, that's it. So all the trucks, gave back the warehouse to our landlord, gave back all the inventory to our contractors, sold the trailers, and it was just like, what else can we liquidate and sell to just kind of like try to pay off everything that we have, last payroll, everything, and we were kind of like almost break even. I say almost a couple of thousand off, obviously, but it wasn't like dramatic where I would tell myself, okay, there's no way I'm gonna recuperate from that. I'm just gonna start another business and I'm gonna pay that in the next couple of years. And I was like, people get a mortgage at my age and
for sure
they survive, right? So I was just like, it's not that bad. And all the knowledge that I acquired through that experience, HR, marketing, R&D,
I mean,
operation.
At that early stage, you kind of do everything.
Dude.
You're balancing everything around with your founders. So cool. So that was your first company.
That's right, man. I'll never trade that experience for anything, dude. Renting cottage, all the company together on a contract, just great memories. So I'd recommend to everybody to go fell, man. Go fell and have fun, because you need to. You
Yes,
need to.
I absolutely agree with you. And there's a stigma, especially, I do think in Silicon Valley, you do have a little bit more of that culture of like, go and fail, do something and then fail, because then you kind of know what it looks like to fail,
Yeah.
and you kind of recognize the patterns. But in some cultures, and to be honest, I don't know. I would say I don't know the Quebec culture enough to kind of state that, but it may be the case. I know Brazil is like that. There is a sort of aversion to failure, and like, oh,
Yeah.
you cannot fail, or if you failed, that's a very bad thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of frowned upon, and I think it's essential to any entrepreneur to kind of fail at least once to know how it feels like. Obviously, if you don't fail and you have a massive success, then
Good for
great,
you. Good for
good for
you.
you. But that's normally not
No,
how it
it's not.
goes. So yeah. So for anyone out there, go and fail.
Yeah.
No shame in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, the quicker you fail, the
And
quicker you'll learn, and you get to build something that
yeah,
is real.
but to be fair, it wasn't truly a failure, was it? I mean,
Well, I consider it a failure because I had to pay stuff right at the end. So
right,
it's like it
but
wasn't like the typical exit of like, hey, let's
right,
just sell the
right,
business and get a bit at least, so you can still consider that.
yeah,
I mean, we sold like the truck, the prototype that we had built, our competitor, made a bit of
yeah.
money there, but again, it didn't offset like everything that we
Right,
had with
but I
like.
mean, it was sort of force majeure,
That's right. That's right.
because it's not something that, I mean, nobody has seen that in our lifetimes.
100%.
So it's kind of like not really your fault. But
Yeah.
okay, you took it kind of like, okay, it didn't go to the
Yeah.
point where you wanted to go. So what happened then?
Probably it's COVID, right? So I was like, I love my experience. I really loved it. It still like caused me a lot of anxiety at the end. Obviously, it's your first, it's going down. You think it's the end of the world. You think you're never gonna survive that. What are people gonna think about me? I'm a failure. Um, and then I think like 2 weeks after, I started a blog with my friend. Uh, to promote local businesses, because I thought, hey, it's COVID, people are kind of like struggling. I was like, I'll see if I can kind of like do the blog and eventually maybe promote some marketing services. Or so we did that for about a month, and a friend of mine heard that I wasn't back at back anymore. I wasn't doing it anymore, and he had a co-working on the South Shore. And his friend owned an incubator as well, and we went through that incubator with Back at the
Oh,
beginning,
okay.
for about like I think 12 weeks. So remained super friends with them, great guys, and so he reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, we're." I think I reached out to him to do an article on him, on his co-working, and he said, "Look, I could use some help too. Obviously, co-working, COVID, it's like everybody's leaving the
Yeah,
office. He's
one
like,
of the
look, I
worst
don't have
spaces at the
revenues
time.
anymore, right? It's like, I don't know, like I need to create an offer, I need to generate money somehow." Or I was like, all right, I'm up for the challenge. So like, I'll work as a consultant, I'll bill you, and let's see if I can, fill up the co-working. So starting doing that, obviously just with the regulation, we're kind of like
So
stuck there. So I
impossible.
said, look, I think we could do maybe a digital version of like the incubator and see if we could offer kind of like, I said, what other services that we can offer the startups or the community that you've already built. So there was kind of like two or three things. One of them was a coaching session, like a 30-minute a month that we put. Second one was the networking. Obviously, there was the event before. So how
Right.
can we help them network, meet people? So they had built a platform where you could introduce people, and they would both receive kind of like an email. So we're like, okay, we'll do some intro for you guys. And thirdly, I'm sure you need money because of COVID. So we'll fill out some grants for you. We'll do grant writings.
Okay.
And that was kind of like the beginning, right, of
Right.
everything. So we called it the hub, at the time, the digital hub. And I started just cold calling and cold emailing businesses and startup and just signing them up for, I think, like 60 or $100 a month, something like super cheap, uh, just to kind of like, hey, can we just get to that break even point with the co-working, the incubator, where at least like we can stabilize everything. We're not like bleeding.
Cover
So I was like, well, I'll
costs.
make it super cheap and just volume. Let's onboard all the startups and figure out how we can deliver after. But I was like, there's so much value in what we offer with like the three things that for $60 a month, everybody's gonna say yes. So of course, everybody started signing up. We went to like a couple thousands in recurring income, kind of helped the co-working. COVID started to kind of like fade away a bit. After like a year and a half, they like stopped the lockdown for a bit before they kind of like re-put it. So
That was summer.
Yeah, so now the spaces car started to like fill up again, and yeah, so that was that. Started working with the incubator as well on a new corporate project. Did a bunch of stuff, and eventually I met with a friend of mine, and he was a real estate broker, and he said, "Look, I could use some help," and he was someone that was really looking up to at the time, a great entrepreneur. He had a restaurant, he had a bunch of other stuff. So I was like, it's not so much about the real estate that I want to start working with this guy to learn. Because even though it was kind of like a consultant at first, and then I got on the payroll full time for them, I always wanted to like go back in entrepreneurship, and I was missing the game, and I was like, I need to go back. So I was like, I think the best way is kind of go work with this guy, and eventually it'll give me, some sort of opportunity to start my own business. Started doing my real estate classes to eventually work with him. Started working part-time with him, actually full-time, doing different things outside of real estate, building him different process to optimize his business, and the CRM marketing. He didn't have any of that, but he was super successful still. And so started working more on the back end, and passed my exam, failed it. So I was like, holy shit. I was like, it's like I wasn't supposed to fail that exam. We were supposed to start. He had a bunch of clients lined up for me, and it was just like a huge disappointment for myself and for him as well. So he decided to join another company and not build a team with me. And it was just business, no hard feelings, but it's just like, okay, it is what it is. So I was like, damn. So then for a year after that, almost, I went back and work in different startups as a sales coach, as doing really different things in startup. Had a blast. Kind of like just always looking for my next opportunity, but never really feel that I was using my full potential in those different structures, and which eventually led to a going back in consultation and consulting, and I was kind of like offering different things to my clients and my leads at the time, and the one that really always kind of like stick out was, hey, can you help me get grants and grant money? And I just had a lot of success doing it at the time, and we ended up hiring like internship to help us in the incubator. And one of the interns is now my co-founder. I hired him. He became a director in the incubator, and he ran the whole program while I was not there. Won a bunch of grants for his clients as well. So we were kind of like working both on our stuff, but still like learning a lot about grants and winning a bunch of grants for our clients. That eventually, it's 2022, and it's like I'm doing this. I'm going all in, working with tech companies. I'm confident I can do it. I've won a bunch of grants, and just build a system where I think I can help founders where I should have been help at the time. When I was at back, building all that stuff, having access to no capital, banks wouldn't lend me any money. We had to go for basically a shark loan. And it was just like, there has to be a better way. And grant was like a good opportunity. And I was like, the reason why I didn't do it in my first business is just, I was so overwhelmed with everything and the ops, and that I knew it existed, but just didn't have the time to take care of it. So I was like, okay, I'll build a system specifically for tech founders like me that have no time, like me, that are scaling, have money, and they just want to get a better return on their investment for every dollar that they inject in the business. And I was like, if I can really nail down this process where founders have to invest a minimum of time and hours in the process, and we can take care of the rest, I think that would be a winning formula.
Got it. It's interesting that you point out that the thing that stuck the most was kind of like, okay, we need capital, and how can I do that without diluting my account, without giving equity. But it's also the sort of focus on one thing that sometimes I see a lot of people miss out. Like, you were mentioning I was offering all these things, and and yes, this one was the one that was kind of being more being more requested. But when you decide to focus on that one thing, you get so much of a clearer vision, because you can just focus on the messaging of that one thing, how you can offer that one thing. People understand much more clearly what you're offering, because there's no a bunch of things, it's just that one thing.
That's right.
So I think there is a huge power, especially if you're a stage startup, just beginning. If you can offer this very simple thing that removes whatever pain whatever company has.
That's right.
I think it's very powerful. I'm actually gonna anyway talk about one company specifically in a future video, which is Linktree, and I'm gonna kind of talk about that laser focused thing. So
That's right.
Okay, so you chose that, and you kind of like, okay, this is something that I want to work with. What were the next steps now?
It for me was so two things, right? One was to fund the company. I was at a time with, again, I work on different contract, but I wasn't rich or anything like that, right? I was living comfortably, doing my stuff, but like nowhere to be able to like pay for a team or anything like that. Right. And I was like, oh, it's a service company. Funding's gonna be kind of like hard. I still have my debt from the other company. It's gonna be hard to raise some money or get a loan again. So I was like, and at that time my mindset was I want nothing to do with that, right? Because it was such a bad experience with my other company, and it kind of like really like haunted me for a while. That was like, this next company, I'm gonna show the world that you don't need anybody to give you $1 to start a company. And that was like really my mindset. So I was like, how can you like kind of like scale the business? And I came across a clip from Alex Hormozi, if you know him.
I'm not sure.
Big jack guys with the nose strip, and
I do know.
yeah.
The description was very spot on.
That's right. Genius guy, by the way. And there was this clip where he was basically saying that how you can use your client, your first client, to acquire the second client and the third client, like, by just basically starting with a bit of credit and then paying for ads and get your first customer that will pay. And if you have good enough margin, you're gonna reuse the profit to acquire the next customer, right? Sure. So there was kind of like this notion that I really liked, but it's like, I don't even need to run paid ads. I'm a savage on cold calls. So I was like, I can do it myself, and like I'll go close the clients. But if I really want to build a team, I'll need like more cash flow than that. So I was like, I'll offer, which became one of the biggest selling point of our business today. I'll offer a guarantee to those clients that I will deliver results and that I will bring money on the table for them.
So you basically guarantee companies, those startups and scale-ups that you're working with, if for whatever reason they don't manage to raise,
that's right,
those get those grants, they can get their money, sort of their money back, which is not a lot, by the way, if you want to talk about it. But
of course, it's just like people thought I was absolutely crazy to do that, because they were like, it's the government, how are you going to guarantee that they can have money? But it seemed crazy at the time, but because I've done it so much in the past, and I knew what was the timeline, when were the deadlines to apply and everything, that was like, it's quite possible if I give myself enough time.
Right.
It's like, for me, there was like no doubt that I can deliver if I have the right prospect and the right fit with the government. There's no way they're not gonna win any grant, right? So I did that and gave myself enough time, and it was a bit more hardcore at the beginning, because we were doing it on a year, and sometimes it takes a lot of time. So we had like a lot of pressure on the team to deliver, which we did. We definitely had some churn, had some people to refund at the end because we just weren't quick enough to, or like they got refused on some applications. So, but that was a good learning curve because we could, it still got us the resources, the financial means to hire people and go test out and find market fit, which is like huge. I think most entrepreneurs miss that point. It should all be about building a great offer and finding market fit at the beginning.
And being customer centric, and
that's right.
And that's a killer offer. I mean, whenever you see something, in my opinion, that is, you know, there's sort of money back guarantee if you don't like, it's just so easy to adopt that.
That's right.
You know, service or technology or whatever. So yeah, definitely. Good on you on that.
So that's it. So that was kind of like the idea. And what we realized from that is that we're really going after startups at the beginning, like early stage, because we knew that they needed money, right? But at the same time, I kind of knew, but really like realized a couple months later that they're not necessarily the best candidates for a government investment, right? So they want to see some traction usually. So that was kind of that. So we kind of like started to quickly move towards more scale-ups. And that was funny because as our persona grew in terms of like employee size, annual revenue, we also did, right? So we could relate so much to our clients' struggle with like cash and growth that it became so natural, and we connected so much with our clients that it was just like we got on a call and it was just like, dude, I know exactly what you're going through because I lived it with my past company, and I'm going through those growth struggle right now with you while you're doing it. And by the way, here's how we did for us, because we did go after some grants for ourselves as well, right? And how it worked, and here's a bunch of testimonials and success stories that we had, and that kind of like really took off from there. And that kind of like gave us the confidence to work on a longer period of time with our clients as well. So now it's more like 2 and 3 years that our clients will work with us. More established company as well, and our success rate just went through the roof at that time, because it was just like I genuinely feel to this day that we have the best scale-ups here in Canada, right? So I was just like, if we have the best case studies, the best businesses, the government's going to read that and they're going to fund it. And it just kind of like exploded from there.
Awesome. So you're mentioning the scale up, you know, that you sort of working with, moving a little bit towards scale ups. And the definition sometimes is a little bit elusive. It's a little bit vague. What would you consider a scale up? What is the sort of definition that you have in mind for, at least for your company?
For me, it's super easy. Is market fit.
Market fit, product market fit.
Product market fit. As soon as you have product market fit, you're ready to grow. Your scale.
So you found product market fit. That's kind of the, because sometimes we see startups when they're moving towards that sort of, they're not yet scale up, but they have early signs of product market fit. But to me, I guess it's kind of the same. I would put in the same category. If you're, you know, if demand is pulling your company forward, I think that's kind of where you define it.
And it's not that there's no good opportunity for startups. I mean, some startups have raised 2-3 millions in grants without even generating revenues, right? There's definitely opportunity. It's just for us. We picked a niche, and that's what we started attracting. So there's different industry, different levels. It's just for us what seemed to work the best. And with our business model as well, what made the most sense was to work with companies that have reached market fit. Most of the times, we'll definitely onboard some very promising startups where we feel like, okay, there's in a year from now, they're going to be on product market. There's like no doubt. It's a great product. We see it really, really shining in 2-3 years. So let's start helping them right now get to that level and get some early stage funding, so that in a year or so, we're already going to be in business with them. And now it just becomes a no-brainer. And then we have access to some impressive amounts.
Good. And what was the main challenge growing the business? What would you say was the one thing, or the two things, if you want, that they kind of, you're like, oh, this is tough?
I'd say definitely the ops operation at first. It's a couple months, about like I think 6 months, 5 months maybe after launching the business, my co-founder joined me. Yeah, just recently quit his last job, and it was kind of like on the edge of burning out. And I called him and I said, look, I think you're not feeling well because like you're not working on something that you truly feel like it's your calling. So I've always said it. I think you're an entrepreneur. I think you should have your own things. I'm a big sales guy, marketing, tip of the spear kind of profile. So I was like, you're all the opposite, bro. You're logistic, you're operation, you're the smartest guy I know. Like we would be a killer duo. So I convinced him. He joined the company. And the thing is, I had kind of like ran the sales for 6 months, built the process, hired people. It was kind of like we had already went through most of the early stage problems within the department, and we were kind of like now creating this new department with grant writers that it was just me and him writing the grants before that. So the main struggle that we had, I'd say, like during our first year was to how can we get the operation to the same level as the sales, so that we can deliver and have the same capacity. It seems like a really good problem because like, oh, you're generating a lot of sales, but if you can't deliver, man, it can become like super dangerous for your brand. So at some point we kind of like slowed down a bit. I stopped like hiring, and we were just like, we're gonna like stop there. On board about like I think we're probably onboarding about like 10 new clients a month, and we'll just like stick there, kind of like scale the operation, hire more people, train properly our team. And when we really saw kind of like hitting the same level, it was like, okay, now it's time to scale the sales again.
That's a very good story there, because I see so many companies that sort of literally sometimes die because of scalability, and they try to scale when the operation is not up to par yet, when everything is, of course you're never going to have everything figured out, but the everything's kind of so loose, and they try to scale, everything kind of breaks down, and so it's an interesting thing that you, first of all, that you were able to recognize, like, okay, this is happening, so we better kind of put everything in order, organize the house, and then before moving towards the next milestone.
Because I had lived it with my previous company.
Right.
Like we were not profitable. We were like barely being profitable. We were just like, we're growing, and eventually we're going to hit profitability, and we're just going to keep hiring, getting more contract, and just become the most dominant player in the game, right? And then we're going to adjust our prices and everything. But then COVID hit, so I didn't get time to do that. So it's literally our ARPU growth that killed the company. Because like, if I had more profit at the time, maybe I would have like a bit more time to kind of like try different things. But so
you had that in the back of your mind.
Oh yeah, 100%. And with Pat, I was like, we'll take our time. I want to minimize the churn. I want to make sure we keep our clients. We get some referrals. People are happy. They want to renew with us. Obviously, it's not a perfect business. People are always going to churn. People are always going to say your service is shit. But as long as the vast majority of people are super satisfied and happy with what you're doing, you just want to make sure you have more 5 stars than 1 star, right?
For sure.
It's like 1 year startup, that's the goal. Eventually the game changes, but at that stage for me, it was just like, if we can get a couple champions in our clients where they're really gonna like represent our brand and show up for us, and even like, I mean, we shout out to George, one of our clients, man. He's been closing deals for us like crazy, because like
George is amazing. He's a networker.
He's a networker, and the thing is, he's not doing it because he's nice. He's doing it because we got him a bunch of money, and he saw the process, and it worked. And he was like, I was about to raise capital and dilute myself. Met Raph. Raph got me all the money I needed for my dev, got the product up, the sales up, and now I'm ready to raise capital eventually, or
on better terms.
That's right. So he's kind of like one of our great success stories. So it becomes kind of like easy to attract more business once you have those testimonials and stories.
And again, it's not something that you can control 100%.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're a service. It's not just you.
That's
It's,
right.
the company as well, and the nature of the company, what
Yeah.
they're doing, how they're doing.
That's a promise I'm kind of like making to all my clients and my team, right? And I want to make sure that we live up to those standards, is that we'll do everything that we can so that our clients get the funding.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there's always kind of like outside circumstances, and there's limited budget, there's limited funds. They have to at some point decide who's getting the funding and who's not. So we're definitely at, sometimes it's sad with great products of our clients, everything seems perfect, and they get refused, and we're just like, how, right?
Yeah.
And so it's part of the game. So obviously we want to live up to the standard that, hey, what can we control, right? How good and efficient we make the process, how much time we're saving our clients, how much expertise we're bringing to the table in stacking the different programs. Those are things we can control that I always want to make sure that we succeed at. Obviously, the end goal, we can't really justify it, but that's also why we decide to offer a guarantee.
Yeah.
Right? So we have skin in the game.
And you can, I guess you can reduce the risk dramatically in terms of like, yes, we're gonna, the work that we do is going to almost guarantee that you have the money, because everything that we're doing is the right thing to do for whatever grants you're applying for. But yeah, reducing risk, not eliminating it completely. You have the risk of not getting the grant, I guess. So a question that I kind of always try to get from founders that that had been through an early stage phase and kind of a growing and getting to the scale up phase, and perhaps in your case, I mean, you're definitely a scale up. Your numbers, it's definitely the case that you are a scale up. What would you say are the differences between being a startup and being a scale up and growing quite fast? What are the main differences you would say?
For me, it's funny because I had this conversation at lunch today, and I said it's the good problems that start, man.
Right.
It's the good problems. What I mean by that, it's not having to find money to pay for your employee at the end of the week. It's not about seeing if you can, somehow kind of like deliver for your clients. Like, we have a process, it works, it's proven, we have a good track record, we have the money. So now it's more about how can you materialize your vision and your goals into something, and now you have to become more creative and try different things. And I think it's just more options, man. It's just more option and less risk. It's like when you're a startup and you do something and it fails, it's like, I need 3 months to kind of like rebuild myself. As when you're a scale up, you can try different things at the same times. You can hire, I'd say, better talents as well, because you have the funds, right? Obviously. So now you have the option to bring more seniority in the team as well. And I love to surround myself with people that are just smarter than me. So it's just like, it was always one of my main criteria. So it's like, now it's cool, we can afford for those times. We're hiring again. It's just like growing. And
do you see a difference in the challenges that startups face? You mentioned of course, the money is a big one. Startup, the main thing that you don't have as a startup is money. But would you say the challenges are somewhat comparable, or how would you say that?
I'd say you kind of like there's a few, right? Now branding starts to matter. When you're a startup, nobody knows about you. Who cares? You can fail as much as one can close the company and start tomorrow, when nobody will know, right? So brand now starts to matter, right? So you need to invest in your brand. And again, there's certain things that you can and can't do with your brand, and you need to really think about how you want to start positioning yourself, because people are going to start seeing you in a certain way. So it's really hard to change someone's perception, but I think it's much easier to create a perception about, or a belief about something, right? If you're not aware who Pana is, I get the opportunity to present myself as I want, right? And you're going to kind of like see me this way, right? As if I present myself, you kind of like look at me a certain way, and if it's the wrong way, for me to change that over time is going to be very complicated. So we don't get many like chances at the bat to kind of like rebuild our brand. So you really need to kind of like invest properly in that. That's why we're doing the podcast. I was starting doing a bunch of PR in the next couple of months as well. So there's like different things that you need to kind of like start doing. That's definitely like a huge challenge, but the biggest one is the team, honestly. When you're just the co-founders or one or two key employees, it's like everything's easy peasy. You work at the time that you want. Everybody's kind of like doing a bit of everything, but this is just not scalable. So at some point you need to kind of like change your hat and become a boss and have standards and create a culture and procedures and SOPs, and when somebody's not doing their job, you have to tell them. It's not like, hey bro, and it's like, okay, we need to do things like professionally, because eventually for the next people you want to set a certain standards that you're not going to be the one kind of like training them or doing anything. So you want to make sure that the next person in place respects certain standards. So yeah, team is definitely kind of like a I mean, I'll touch on wood, like it's a blessing. I have the greatest team. Everybody's like on the same vision, but it's still challenging sometimes because you have a certain vision for yourself, for the company, and you have to understand that even though they're committed to the business, they're not the entrepreneurs, they're not the founders. So how do you get them to a certain level where they care enough that they'll contribute to their highest potential, but also acknowledging that they're not founders, right?
And that matching, sometimes matching the founder's energy is very, and sometimes it's very unfair to ask of them, like
100%.
match my energy. It's very hard. It's just two different things, and I think some entrepreneurs forget about that, and then kind of hit a wall when they try to acquire talent. And you mentioned that hiring becomes easier. And I think, in my experience, it becomes easier financially for sure. And obviously, you have the resources and maybe the brand to acquire great talent. But duplicating talent is excruciatingly painful, because now when you're 3, 4, 5, it's fine. You can kind of rely on one another. Use early days of the team, but kind of expanding that knowledge and that level of commitment and that level, it's very, very hard. And so I think when it's financially more easier to hire, it's also in my view it's also difficult. It's also very, very difficult to kind of find the right people to do the right job.
That's right.
So again,
it can be the reason why you're scaling, or it could be the reason why your business dies.
Exactly.
Like literally, and you quickly see it. For me, I see it every time. It's either it's taking the business to a whole new level, and you get feedback that is like incredible. And yesterday I had a client on LinkedIn ask me for my phone number, my personal phone number, and I was like, okay, what happened? We just onboarded him last week. I was like, what's the problem, right? That he wants to talk with me. And he just wanted to call me to tell me that, hey, by the way, like, great team. Your project manager, she's a gem.
Such a relief.
Dude, I was panicking. I was like, oh my God, again, like what's happening, right? It's like you're so stuck in your startup mindset of like you have to problems, and it's good feedback that our clients get, right? Nobody's like mad or anything like that. Most of the time it's just like, hey, can we do this thing differently, or have you guys thinking of like improving this and that, which is fine, but it's still kind of causing a bit of stress, because it's like, if we don't do it, are they going to be mad at that point? Is it going to trigger something else? But I think one of the biggest difference when you're scale up, if you've done things properly, it's really starts to work, man, and just kind of like flow. And now everybody's kind of like happy and seeing results, and now it's just like you get more and more of that. So yeah, it could be just like that. Clients calling you personally, tell you, hey, you have a great team, or it can be the opposite, right? Yeah, that's the thing. You don't have control over that, really.
Yeah. Okay, so can we get a small glimpse of what are the next steps for Pana if you if you can disclose some of the.
I can disclose a few.
Okay.
Definitely not everything. Still a
Yeah,
lot
don't do
of
that.
in the
Don't.
making, obviously. But you're definitely going to see a lot of things in the next couple of weeks being announced. But one of the big thing is our expansion throughout Canada. So we started early this spring to kind of like tap out outside of Quebec in Ontario, and we just great feedback. Traveled there a couple of times, thinking that okay, Toronto might be our next big market, which kind of like became in the last couple of months, and we built our expansion playbook. And okay, how can we kind of like quickly scale? And that's really when we had to review and revisit all our process. So now, how can we do it for tens of thousands of leads and tens of thousands of businesses, which like really kind of like switch the mindset of everybody on the team of like, okay, we're not a startup anymore, guys. Like we're really going to the next level. So yeah, next step is we're starting Alberta this month and BC next month. So any scale ups in Quebec,
BC is a huge
Ontario,
ecosystem.
BC, and
Alberta
Alberta.
as well.
Obviously huge hubs, and so those are kind of like the next big steps until the end of the year. We definitely have some like really important financial goal that we want to hit with the team. Um, I'd say like big drivers for us is definitely the amount of scale ups that we onboard. So we want to quadruple that in the next month.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been but I
In
mean
1 month.
yeah.
That's
I mean, we've seen our growth in the last 3 months since we've kind of like established a new game plan and doing different, changing a lot in our process, and we've been in consistently those goals that I think it's realistic. I think we're going to be in a totally different place by December, which is like super exciting. That's one big thing, and second is obviously the only reason I'm doing this is to see our clients win, right? More money, and that's been very exciting for a couple of months. You do all the application, you're starting the business, and you're like, is it gonna work? Even though you've done it yourself,
rewards,
even though you're like I've done it myself, my partner have done it, and we've helped hundreds of startups ourselves. It was still kind of like, can we redo it again? Now in this brand, it was kind of like unsure and a bit stressful. And then in spring, we started getting our first kind of like round of acceptation. That was just like, thank God, like everybody's kind of like winning money. And it was just like 85% of our clients so far in our portfolio had received some funds. So it was kind of like super liberating and encouraging. And now we were kind of like waiting for the bigger programs to close, and now it kind of like starts. So now we went from getting the quick wins to our clients to starting to hit some home runs for some of those scale-ups where it'll make a huge difference in their business. We're talking like hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in a year. So we've recently again like had our bigger weeks in grants. So it's just like kind of like all pouring in at the same time with our growth and everything. So that's why it's kind of I don't think there's like a day where I'm going to be able to say we went from startup to scale up, but there's definitely kind of like a period where we started everything kind of like shaking and brewing, and I think we're right in it right now.
Okay, amazing. So I recently posted a video about the ecosystem. Basically, as you know, I'm not I'm still kind of new to Montreal. Been 2 years here, so been kind of still learning a bit. And part of it was COVID as well. There was a time where I couldn't really meet other entrepreneurs, but now I think I have a sense of how it works. And what would you say about the ecosystem, not just in Montreal, but in general in Canada? What would you say? Like, how would you compare it to other ecosystems that you might know? The obvious one is Silicon Valley, but you have New York, you have different ecosystems around. And having such a broad vision of the ecosystem as you guys have, and seeing the numbers and seeing the kind of the inside outs of the products, how would you compare the ecosystem here?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I don't think I can talk too much about how it is for like industry specific maybe, but in terms of like funding and probably like community, we're seeing like a lot of growth in right now in Alberta. That's why we kind of like shifted our eyes on the province. Montreal for me, obviously special to my heart. In terms of like networking, meeting entrepreneurs, I think it's probably one of the best places where you can start a business. I think it's great. Toronto is going to be a bit more expensive,
Right.
and but in terms of like, so Quebec in general, grand landscape, amazing. I've talked with many accountants, tax experts, saying, do I need to incorporate in Delaware or in Dubai?
Incorporating
And they all
Quebec.
told me, if you're in tech, stay in Quebec. Stay in Quebec, the incentives are there. So Quebec is great for that. Toronto, what I really liked about it, Ontario in general, is the level and the type of scale-ups that are there. For me, there was just like an instant connection.
Right.
That's what I really like. I think more startups in Montreal, more scale-ups in Toronto.
I
Just
see.
probably because of the
That's
cost of
interesting.
living and everything that kind of like plays in the.
Do you think that has anything to do with funding as well? Funding in the sense of basically VC capital. I mean, do you think there's any correlation to the amount of VC firms and private investment?
Maybe before.
Okay.
I think not so much anymore, especially like since COVID, everything is so remote. Um,
Agreed.
I know a lot of our clients, going on 30, 40 investors meeting virtually,
Right.
and eventually
All
they'll
over.
fly or they'll drive, right, to go meet if like something's more serious. So I don't think it's so much about raising capital or the grants landscape as much as I think kind of like the low level opportunity that the province or the city has to offer. Most of the time it's going to be like networking events, incubators, like what services can help me kind of like start my business or grow my business. And I think Quebec is really good for that in terms of startup. In Montreal, huge AI hub, so obviously makes a lot of sense. Toronto will get a bit more advanced, I would say. Super curious about how things are going to grow in Alberta and in BC, but very optimistic for BC in terms of scale ups. A lot of great technology being built there. Alberta, super excited because the government is putting a lot of money in Alberta in tech. Right now, they really want to like kind of like grow the province. So I think a lot of great opportunities are going to kind of like emerge from there. Yeah, and next up for us, I think it's going to be we're definitely looking at New York, at San Francisco, Silicon Valley. The big one that we're doing a market research on right now is Austin.
Austin is
Right,
I think it's one of the big ones
Yeah,
in the
that's
coming years.
And when you think about it, there's probably like I don't know, I'm throwing a number in the air, but it's probably like what 30% of all the U.S. population that are in these 5 cities, right?
A lot of startups and scale up moving
That's right.
to Austin as well. I see a lot of that. When we talk about American companies, obviously, but yeah, that's interesting. I think BC also benefits from the proximity to Silicon Valley to some degree. I think that helps. So yeah, but interesting to see how you sort of see the different provinces.
Yeah, it's always in our studies, it's always to see if there's a large enough volume of scale ups and serious companies that are are past the stage of like it's just an idea, right? And the amount of funding that the government is given. If you can match those two for us, it becomes kind of like a great niche. So we'll see how it goes. There's still like a lot of work to do before announcing that we're penetrating different foreign markets, obviously, but it's definitely something that we want to show and prove that we can do, because there's not a lot of companies that will take that direction, because it becomes very complex with different programs. Everything is different, right? So it's like always a new market. You need to adapt and learn and find your fit, but that's kind of our strength right now. It's to open up markets and kind of like go into new territories. So we'll see how it goes, but Yeah, I really like my last couple of trips to Toronto, man. Well, I'm not gonna lie, great conversation, great entrepreneurs that I met with. So, um, super optimistic to see how my visits are gonna be in Calgary and in Vancouver, and see from there. But yeah, by September, I think I'm gonna be able to give you a better answer
Got
for
it.
sure.
Got it. Okay. To wrap up here, what would you say to aspiring entrepreneurs, people that maybe have an idea, they want to execute something, or they want to build a company? What would the tips be for that person?
Um, I'd say you don't have to put yourself in a stressful situation because you want to rush to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
I think I've done it like at such a young age with like all the financial stress of having to do and pay back money, and that if I had to redo it again, I think I would probably get some stability a bit more.
It builds character, though. I'm joking.
For sure. Yeah, I think that
Maybe
too.
you don't need
That
that
too.
to build character.
No, but I just think that you can go to market, do something that you find a real need for and a real problem,
Yeah.
and you can solve it for free and get some testimonials and get people to talk about you. That's the real test if your business is going to work. So you don't have to go crazy, having to charge people, not deliver, get some bad reviews. It worked for me with Pana because I had done it with different businesses first. So I was not really starting, right?
Yeah,
so that's why I was charging, and I had experience and a track record in grants. But if you're really starting from scratch, you got to go learn, and you don't want to piss off people. You don't want to steal people's time and money, right? So go do it, go learn, focus on building a crazy good offer, and getting some testimonials and learning with your clients and talk to them, and that will eventually lead to a business model and to you finding market fit and you scaling into something that's bigger. But if you have a shitty offer, people don't trust you, and you don't have the skill to grow a company, you don't even think about charging high tickets and high prices to your clients, right? So go and fail, go learn, make sure nobody is left um, kind of like disappointed in how you delivered. So make sure you do it with open arms, welcome critiques, comments, because those are literally the biggest gift and blessing that you can get, is getting some feedback so you can improve, because there's no real school that will teach you all of that. It's all about your clients, it's all about the market, and you're going to fail, and eventually it's going to work.
That's great advice, and I think that's a wrap.
I think that's a wrap, man.
Appreciate you chatting here. Appreciate you coming by, and all the lecture, the next steps for Pana.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll
keep you posted, and I'll have you on our show, man.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, if you wanna join us, that'd be fun.
Sure.
You have a crazy story. I know we chat a bit about it.
Yeah.
Last week or so, and I was just so impressed with like everything you've accomplished. So very underrated, bro. You need to get out there, and that's why I like about your YouTube channel.
For sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Again, thanks so much.